Do you want to catch more fish than your friends? In this video, I'm going to share the best tips I've learned from over 10 years of fishing with a Ned rig. I'll show you the gear you need, a few sneaky setup tricks, the best spots to fish this bait, and most importantly, how to work it in a way that gets you more bites. If you've been struggling to catch bass, this is the video that can turn it around. So first, let's get started with gear. I've been fishing this rig for over 10 years now, and I've experimented with a lot of different rods, reels, line, baits, everything that you could with this lure. I'm gonna run you through the bare basics that you need if you want to master this technique, and then a few sneaky options that you can mix in to help you catch even more fish as you gain more experience with this rig. Starting off, for your rod and reel, you do not need anything fancy for the Ned rig at all. It is one of the most basic techniques that you can fish in all of bass fishing. Today we are going to be using a Cashin Icon Ned rig rod. This is a 7-foot medium power fast action. Those specs on your rod are going to be key to allowing you to fish this Ned rig properly. The medium power allows you to get a good hook set with this hook. We're going to be showing you a couple upgraded hook options later today that you need a little bit more backbone than like a medium light rod to be able to set the hook on these fish. And the fast tip allows you to make far casts and feel what your bait's doing down there on the bottom. And then I pair that up with a Shimano Sedona 2500 spinning reel here. Now the main thing that I'm looking for in my spinning reel is a good drag system so that when I pull this, it comes out nice and smooth, even on the coldest of days like it is today. It is 33 degrees outside, the water temp is 39, and there's no better time to fish a Ned rig than right now. It's one of the few baits you can actually still catch fish with. But if you do not have this exact rod and reel setup, anything that is a 2000 to 3000 size spinning reel that holds a good amount of braided line, has a smooth drag system, and a rod that is in a 6'6" to 7-foot medium power fast action will do just fine and allow you to fish this bait very properly. From there, I will be spooling this reel up with braided line. It is key to allow you to see where this bait is on the bottom, make sure it stays on the bottom, and most importantly, feel all the bites that are down there. These fish will bite this very softly. You need to be able to feel it and have no stretch to get a good hook set when they bite. So to get all those benefits, I use 15-pound test lime green braided line. It's only a 4-pound test diameter, so that allows you to make very far casts. It casts further than if you put like 8 or 10-pound test fluorocarbon on your reel. And that lime green color will allow us to use it as essentially a strike indicator to see what our bait is doing down there on the bottom. And then to keep the fish from seeing the line, I tie an FG knot and I put about 10 foot of an 8-pound test fluorocarbon leader on here. So I stop it right about above my reel here. Depending upon how many times I retie, it starts to come out a little bit further. Once it gets in between this first and second guide right here, then I'll probably tie a new leader on. But as long as it's somewhere in this range here, you have about 10 foot of line, those fish will never see this braid and you will get just as many bites as you would if you were throwing straight fluorocarbon. Then when it comes down to the bait itself, it is extremely simple. You need a jig head and a Ned rig bait, and that is about it. Now for just getting started with this technique, I like just a basic open hook jig head. Now I do pour these myself, but there are plenty awesome ones on the market here. For those of you that don't know, I'm actually going to be fishing the Bassmaster Opens next year to try and qualify for the Bassmaster Elite Series. I'll be documenting the entire journey in a documentary series on the channel here, so you won't want to miss that. But in addition to that, I had some awesome partners jump on to help support the channel and to help me support that from all of your support. And one of them is Z-Man, one of the most requested baits that you guys asked me to fish with, or brands, and I'm super excited to partner up with them to be able to bring you guys a ton of awesome content, giveaways, stuff like that throughout the year on the channel. And one of those awesome jig heads that you can use that are on the market is the Nedlocks HD. It comes with a similar heavy duty hook that I pour in my own Ned rig heads here. I find that the regular Shrooms heads that you can buy have way too light of a hook in there. Now if you are getting a ton of snags and you don't want to lose a bunch of jig heads, there is a time and a place for that, especially if you're not fishing tournaments or anything like that. You can use those jig heads, they'll bend out when you get a snag and you'll get jig heads back a lot more. But if you're looking to keep as many fish on as possible, I find a stiffer wire hook helps keep them on. So whether you pour your own or you go with the Nedlocks, those are two great options out there that allow you to keep these fish hooked and all the way back to the boat. And then from there, I pair it up with a standard TRD. That is like the go-to combo if you're just looking for a Ned rig to get started. Pick an open hook jig head like this and a standard Z-Man TRD and you are ready to go. Pick your favorite color. Some of my favorites are like a standard green pumpkin. Anytime you're just trying to get some bites, that bait will always work. It's a super natural presentation. Today, the fish are feeding on crawfish a lot and the water's dirty, and we're fishing for smallmouth. So I actually mixed in a couple hot colors today, like the green pumpkin orange. It has a very orange color to it to try and draw these fish in feeding on crawfish, and the copper truce. Smallmouth love chartreuse. It is a deadly bait for them to be able to see this thing from a distance and swim over there and get that bait. And then some of the other ones we have are just like the hot craws and the green pumpkin gobies. Any of your standard green pumpkin color will always work. So if you're looking for the basic rig to get started, that's all you need. Just that rod, an open hook jig head, and a Z-Man TRD, and you are ready to go and get out there and catch some fish. Now, if you want to take it up just another notch, there is a few more things that you can add into your assortment here to help you maximize your Ned rig fishing game. Now, the first thing that I have is the Weedless Pro Shrooms head here. If you are fishing around wood that is down in the water, today we're fishing around rock, so we might not use this as much, but wood specifically, these open hooks are notorious for sticking into the wood and getting snagged. If you switch to this jig head, those little wire weed guards will deflect off the wood and keep you from getting hung up as much and catching a lot more fish. Now, you can actually take it one step further to make it even more weedless, and it will come through grass, rock, wood, all of it, and you can use the finesse bullets. I use these a lot whenever I'm fishing in that wood and grass mixture. You can Texas rig your bait on here essentially, and it will work through everything. And you can keep a little Ned rig bait bouncing around down there in all those rocks, wood, grass, and never getting hung up. So those are the two additional jig heads that I like to add into the mix, but I also like to add a few more baits into the mix as well. So depending upon how you're fishing this bait, the type of forage these fish are feeding on, anything like that, you can use other TRD baits to allow you to get even more bites. And all of these are the TRD baits because they float up on the bottom, which is the key with the Ned rig. When you stop this bait, you want it to sit upright on the bottom like this. If you throw a bait that has salt on it, when you stop your bait, it falls over and lays flat on the bottom. You will still catch fish doing that, but I find that the TRD stuff stands straight up in the water. So the TRD bugs and craws, these are both awesome options, whether the fish are feeding on crawfish or like the bugs, if they're feeding on small little bluegills, it has a little bluegillish shape to it. It has a wider body. It's basically like a micro beaver. So all of these will work awesome if you put them on that finesse bullets. It works great, or just the open hook. You can do either one with these, and we may play around with these throughout the day as we start catching some fish. The other ones I like to play around with, especially if I'm just using the standard TRD and catching fish and I want to mix it up a little bit if everybody else is throwing that, you can either throw the ticklers. It has 4 little prongs on the outside end of it, has a little bit more action in the water. We probably won't use that one today because it's so cold. You really don't want any action in your bait. And another great one is the TRD fatties. This thing works awesome. It has a different action than the standard TRD. The standard TRD is just a straight tail, almost Senko style profile, and it has literally no other action. The tail might wiggle just a little bit. This is like a segmented body, so it has a thick portion, a thin portion, and then another thick portion. It has like a wiggle to it in the water, and it allows you to catch a few more fish, give your Ned rig just a little bit different look. So mix in some of those other baits, mix in some of those other jig heads. Once you start getting experience with this technique, it will help you catch even more fish because everybody's throwing the Ned rig now. It is an awesome bait to catch a ton of fish, so sometimes mixing up a little bit and doing something a little bit different but still in the same technique will help you catch more fish. Now let's quickly walk through how to rig one of these up so that you can catch the most amount of fish on it, and it's very simple. I'm going to show just the open hook here, but basically the same rules apply to either of these other two. You just make sure your bait is straight is the biggest thing. I'm going to tie this jig head on with a Palomar knot because that's what I feel most confident in. But if you have another knot that you feel more confident in, go ahead and tie that one, whatever you like the most. The next step is just to put your bait on. So the one trick with the Z-Man plastic material is the Elastec stuff does not like to go over hook keepers. It will ball up and it doesn't get straight. So what I do is I measure where I need this thing to come out so that my hook point will be straight and it'll lay straight on the hook shank. I will push this bait around the bend to make sure it comes out where it needs to go to lay straight. And then when you get up to the hook keeper here, if you try and just push it over, it will not work. It'll just ball up. If you grab the bottom of the bait towards the head, pull it up towards the jig head and snap it into place, it will go straight over that hook keeper and land perfectly straight on your bait. And you just push your finger right on that little prong. It'll hook into that Elastec material, and this thing will stay on there all day. It's not coming off until you snag this thing on the bottom or catch a ton of fish. So now that we're all rigged up, Let's get out on the water. We're gonna show you where and how to fish this to catch the most fish, and then put it to the test and try and catch some big winter smallmouth bass. And before we get to fishing today's bait, if you could head down below and hit the subscribe button. Only 14% of you that watch the channel are actually subscribed, and I'm trying to reach that 100,000 subscriber mark. So if you could help me out with that goal, that would be greatly appreciated. And while you're down there, all the gear from today's video will be linked if you'd like to check any of it out for yourself and directly help support the channel to continue making awesome videos like these. But for now, let's go show you how to fish this bait and catch some big smallmouth bass. So now let's talk about where you want to fish a Ned rig. And honestly, the Ned rig excels pretty much any time of year, day, condition, anything you want. It will catch fish no matter what you have thrown your way. But there are some conditions where it makes it more ideal than others. Some of the best times to be throwing a Ned rig is in cold water, like we have today, or on those post-frontal bluebird days where there's no wind and the fish really just don't want to bite anything, or in any type of pressured fishing scenario. If you have a body of water where the fish are seeing every bait under the sun, a lot of times just throwing a small subtle profile like this will at least get you some bites. Now, as for what type of cover you fish with the Ned rig, again, it can excel in pretty much anything dependent upon how you rig it, like we talked about with some of those other baits there. But for me, my prime place that I want to fish this is rock. We have a ton of rock up in front of us here. We have gravel, we have big chunk rock, any of that stuff will work. You will get hung up a fair bit, but it just excels in those areas. I don't know if it's because there's a lot of crawfish down there, a lot of bait, whatever it might be, but the Ned rig excels in those areas and it works through there pretty well if you choose your jig head size correctly. So this is where you're gonna choose your jig head size, and the number one way I like to do it, I do it on pretty much all of my soft plastic baits. When you're fishing a place like this, today we're fishing a river with rock. What I'll do is I'll pick a jig head size I feel is appropriate. So today we have no wind and we have a light current. So I picked about a medium-sized jig head because the water is still very cold, so I want to keep it on the bottom. I'll make a cast, and as I drag that bait through there, if I get hung up every single rock that it's bumping into, I know that I picked too heavy. So then you want to lighten your jig head up. If you throw it out there and you're dragging it and the wind is blowing or the current's strong or whatever it might be, and you're dragging it and you can't feel anything down there, you've picked too light. So then you bump your jig head size up until you hit the right size. Now, it's very important to carry multiple sizes of jig heads for that reason, where in other instances, maybe even like your color or your bait selection on here, you can get away with a limited selection, a green pumpkin, or just the TRD or something like that. I truly believe that having the right size jig head makes a big difference over the actual color of your bait or anything like that. It makes your presentation better as opposed to the appeal to the fish. So I carry everything from a 1/10 ounce up to a 1/4 ounce and every size in between. I like to have all the little size increments because sometimes that smallest little jig head size change can make a huge difference in the number of fish you catch. Now you can also fish this bait around wood, docks, grass, any of that stuff. You just have to adjust your rig appropriately to make sure you're not getting snagged as much. It also works very well in rivers like we're going to today because of the current. It flows very naturally down there on the bottom and looks like a bug, a crawfish, a minnow, whatever these fish want to eat. Now, as for how to actually fish the bait, there are a few different retrieves that you can use throughout the course of the day. But just as with jig head size, choosing the right retrieve can make a big difference in the number of fish you catch throughout the day. So let's walk you through a few of the different retrieves that I like to use, and then today I'm going to show you which one I'll be using throughout the course of the day to catch the most fish. Now, all you're going to do is pick your location. You're going to make a far cast, and you can see how far you can throw with that braided line. I'll lay my line on the surface and I'm going to watch and see as this goes out and goes towards the bottom. We're going to use that lime green braid like a strike indicator. So I'm watching it sink. As soon as it lays slack, it will come back to you and you'll see the line lay right on the water. Then all you're going to do, depending upon which type of retrieve you're going to do, I'll go from most activity to least activity. The most active fish you're going to have, you're going to go ahead and just do some little hops across the bottom. And you can see I'm just basically shaking the slack in my line. You can do a couple little hops, just like 1 or 2, 3 or 4. You can mix it up however you want, but just small little hops. I reel up till I'm tight with the bait. Short little hops with my rod tip. Just getting it to just kind of glide along the bottom and do little activity right there in front of the fish's face. And then you can just basically fish this all the way back to you. You reel all the way up to your bait and short little hops on the bottom with some pauses in between. That's a super effective way to do it, usually between spring and fall. If I'm fishing spring, summer, or fall, that's the type of retrieve that I'm going to use. Helps me catch a lot more fish unless the fish are very pressured and seeing a lot of Ned rigs. When you get very pressured fish or you move into some colder water fish like we have today, what I'm going to do is make that same cast, but instead of hopping it, I'll let it sink all the way down to the bottom like I did last time. So I'm watching my line. That lime green braid lays slack back towards me, so I know it's on the bottom. And all I'm going to do is reel up till I'm tight with this bait, and I'm literally going to take my hand off the reel and just pull it and feel it crawl over every little rock down there. Like I just felt it go over a rock. I'm going to let it sink right back down to the bottom, pull it a little bit further. It's going over a couple rocks, rock, 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 rock. And you don't want to get too high up like this. When you get up this high with your rod, a lot of times if you get a bite, you'll have to reel all the way back down and then set the hook. And a lot of times that fish has already spit that out. So I like to keep my rod about 9 o'clock, pull up, feel the rocks, maybe get stuck on a couple of them. It's okay, you can shake it off if you have the right size jig head like I just did. And I'll get to about 11 o'clock here, and then I'm reeling back down to make another drag. Sometimes you'll get bit way up high here. You just have to reel back down and set the hook quickly, but I don't like to get like way back here. You can still feel the bait, but if you're way back here, you have no leverage if you get a bite to actually set the hook on a fish. So the dragging technique works very, very well. That is the one that I use probably the most. I catch a ton of fish doing that, just slowly bouncing it on the bottom. And the last one you can use is basically like a dead stick. You throw this thing out here, let it sink all the way down to the bottom, just like we did with every other one so far. And this one, you're gonna let it lay on the bottom so that those fish can have a chance to look at it. I only do this in like the coldest time of water. I very rarely use this technique, but sometimes when you have very pressured fish, it does work. You'll reel up as it's laying there for 15, 20, 30 seconds, and you'll slowly drag it forward just a few feet. Feel it bump over a couple rocks. Maybe once it comes over this last rock right there, boom, it just came over a rock. I'm gonna let it sit there and just kind of sit in those fish's face. It can work when they're like spawning as well as a great time. If you happen to be fishing fish that you can't see, but you know they're around the spawn, as you drag it, if you pull it onto a fish's bed and it just sits up like this, even if you don't see the bed, sometimes they'll just swim over and grab that bait. It's a way to catch them, but for me, I really just like to drag and stop, or if the fish are very active, I'll do some hops to get that bait in their face, active, and trying to get them to bite it. And then for the hook set, we'll walk you through that as we catch some fish here once we go put this all together here in just a second. But the biggest thing to remember with your Ned rig is less is more. You don't want this thing hopping up and down off the bottom to going crazy. Keep it close to the bottom, move it very slowly and softly. A lot of times when you're fishing this bait, they don't really want to bite anyway, so you're trying to force them into biting, and if you can force them into biting, you fish it nice and slow, you'll get the most amount of bites. So let's put all these tips together and see if we can catch some big smallmouth bass. So the main thing I'm looking for right now is current breaks. With this water being 39 degrees, these fish are going to want to sit in no current at all to exert zero energy and hopefully have some bait right in their face. And that's our goal, is to basically drag this bait right in front of their face so that they can't resist but to bite it. But you got to drag it slowly enough to get them to do that. So we're just going to work these areas really, really slowly. We're looking for big rock piles that create an eddy, and they can sit in that eddy and just ambush bait fish and kind of hang out there until spring, because they know winter is right around the corner. It snowed twice this week already. The water temperatures dropped over 10 degrees in a week, so it's getting cold fast, and these fish know it. The one thing I'm using to find these current breaks, it's very obvious when you do see it, is the foam. You can literally see where the foam kind of swirls or where it bounces off the bank and the foam builds up. That's a big current break, because there's literally no current movement, so all the foam just sits there, where if it was moving water, the foam would just wash away. So I'm looking for that foam to kind of tell me where these fish are. The leaves, where the leaves are stacking up. It looks like areas where you'd never cast a bait, or you couldn't even get your bait in, but those fish are sitting underneath of that, because that's the warmest water and it is the most calm water that they can sit in right now. There's one. Real subtle bite. They just gently tap it when you're dragging it that slow, especially in this cold water. But we got one. And they inhale this thing when they get it. Come here, buddy. Got him. Nice. You just have to fish so slow. It's not an exciting way to fish whatsoever, but it catches fish, and especially this time of year when they won't bite much, I just like to get a few bites and get some fish in the boat. That's not a big one. We're going to throw him back, and we're going to see if we can get one much bigger than her. But that's the first one on the Ned rig. Let's see if we can get us some more. There's one. Oh my gosh, he's giant. He's giant, just slowly dragging it. You can't fish slow enough this time of year. I can't stress how important it is. Beautiful smallmouth there. Got some black coloration on the side of her, all spotted up. Went for that copper truce Ned rig again. They're liking the bright color. With this overcast day we have today, it's very dark outside, the water's very dirty, they're down deep. They need something they can see and stand out in the water. I think that copper truce Ned rig is getting it done. We're gonna let her go and we're gonna try and get us another one. Another one. This one feels even bigger. I can't tell though. Yeah, it's a big fish. They can jump all they want. These Ned rig hooks, you buy the right hook. Don't get a fine wire one, you get a stiff wire. They will stay on the whole way back to the boat. I mean, I can literally take my time with this fish and maybe I miss and I get her that time. She's not coming off. I mean, they are on there the entire way back. You can see she's got this bait all the way down in there. And that is another beautiful smallmouth. Let's go ahead and let her go and see if we can get us one more. They're loving this Ned rig in this cold water, and I'm having so much fun catching these fish. So let's get her back in the water and get back after it. Alrighty, this is awesome. They're biting so well. I can't believe it with how cold this water is. And you can see with these TRDs, your bait gets messed up like that. You literally just spin it around, snap that Elastec right back into place. Boom, ready to go back down there. Don't need a new bait. I've now caught like 5 fish on this bait so far today. Haven't lost it. It's fantastic. I love the Elastec material. Saves you a ton of money. It's super economical for fishing and catches a ton of fish. I never learn. There we go. Got one. It's a decent fish. Another one just dragging it through these rocks real slow. Nice. Look at that. Hooked perfectly with that Ned rig. Right there in the corner of his mouth, right behind the jawbone. Beautiful little smallmouth right there. And while the Ned rig is an amazing finesse bait to catch a ton of fish, if you want to see another bait I pair with this to catch even more fish, check this video out right here. Hit that subscribe button down below, and thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.